game, but thinking back a couple of weeks, right around the time when everybody seemed to know that Kevin Adams would be on his way out, Paul said, they're maybe not bad, but for the Sabres to get in it, they're going to need a 10-game winning streak. Well, we're at 7. And wouldn't you know it, Paul, they're in 7th place through 7 straight wins. So this is to your point. It's still so close in that division, though. 10 points top to bottom. A couple more, you get your 10-game winning streak, and they're right there.
So, yeah, really. I mean, that's 3 more, and they probably would be in there because, as you know, I go by points percentage because it takes the games in hand out, which means they would only have to pass Ottawa and Washington right now. Sabres are at 556. Senators are at 569. Washington would be in that 8th spot at 581. So, they've gotten over 6. They need 2 more. And that's about what it would take. About 10 wins to, accomplish that and get yourself into that spot.
Several of these recent wins have gone past regulation. And I wonder if you think, this is something we've talked about through the years when the Sabres have fallen short. They just, too many regulation losses and not enough, quote, loser points. They've had 10 games this year get to overtime. And lately they've been running well on those games. How much of a skill is that? Late in games when it's, the last commercial break and the game is tied. How much do you think teams can control over, and do they think like this to get the game to overtime?
Well, if you're trying to get the game to overtime, you got to minimize the chances. And since Seattle, that's what they've done. They've been either tied or in a 1-goal game every game since then. And they defended it in every game except the Islander game, which they wound up winning in overtime. And that they didn't get tied up on 5-on-5. It was 6-on-4 that they gave up the tying goal. So really, in 5-on-5, they defended it very well in that game also. So and how are they doing it? Well, they've stopped, handing the puck to the other team and giving them 3-on-1s or breakaways, or in one occasion a 2-on-0, and just putting your goaltender in a horrible situation. I mean, yeah, the goaltender every now and then had to make a big save, which is his job. But you don't want to put him in this spot where he has to make 5 big saves for you, because he's not going to make 5 big saves for you. He's human. So that's where I think the difference is. They have bought in finally from top to bottom to Lindy Ruff and what he wants them to do, and they're doing it. Instead of this is a hard-headed bunch. They like to do it their way. They think their way is great, and then next thing you know, they're in last place in the conference. So this time, when they were in last place in the conference, they decided, well, you know what? Maybe we should do it Lindy Ruff's way. See how that works. And so far, they've done it that way, and it's worked well.
Have you talked to players about the GM change and whether it's they're saying it or you're thinking it? How much credit does that move get for what's happening?
They're not talking about how much credit it is. They all said they liked Kevin Adams and all that after, and they felt responsible for him being fired because they're the ones on the ice and they were the ones screwing things up on the ice. So, it has to help because just talking to the players now, you can just see it's like a cloud lifted off of them. It's like they're freer, and they've for all of them in their Sabre career, it's just been misery. The misery of horrible losses, horrible seasons. You're out of it by the holidays, and it's just year after year, pounding at you and pounding at you. And now all of a sudden that's gone, and it's a new day. And you have a GM who has actually done the job for 11 years, and he hires a guy to be his assistant who's actually done the job for just as long with the Montreal Canadiens. And it just seems like they're becoming an organization now. I almost it seems like, amateur hour is over, and now the pros have taken over. And, it's so far in a week, or however long it's been, has it been a full week yet?
Since the change?
Yeah.
Just a little over.
A little over a week. It just seems like this guy's no nonsense. He's going to tell you the way it is, whether you like to hear it or not. And, he's not afraid to go for it either. And he's already brought in his own people in a couple of occasions. And, It's so you can already feel that, all right, he wants people that know how he wants things done. He's bringing them here, and I'm sure there will be more to come in the future.
Their first game under Kekalainen officially as GM was last Thursday, so 8 days ago. That's the Philadelphia win on the 18th. With Paul Hamilton, so if you haven't already said it, I'm asking about like the how and the why. What's the what here? What are they doing better? You're talking about, the broader spectrum of like listening to the coach and executing whatever that is that you mean. Is there what else has contributed to this run?
Well, how many times have you heard me say, just pick a goalie
Mm-hmm.
and let him act like the starting goaltender? Let him get on a run. Don't, and this is on Lindy Ruff, don't just sit there, all right, he played 2 games, he played a bad one, let's pull him out and let's go to the next guy. That's what he was doing. And nobody could get into the net and get on a roll until Lyon has done that. It was in Calgary where it was not going well for Luukkonen after 40 minutes. Lyon came out and didn't come out of the net until Luukkonen started on Sunday against the New Jersey Devils. And by the way, played probably his best game of the year. Played very well. Held them in that game until they could get their legs. And and before that, Lyon hadn't won a game since the end of October against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And then all of a sudden he wins every game he's in. He didn't win the Calgary game, but from that, then he got in because of an injury to Ellis in the next game, wins that game, and then he's starting all the rest of them and winning all those. And I fully believe, and I've asked him, and he said it is easier when you get a chance to get in there and get yourself on a roll and, not have to worry about, am I going to be in the next game or whatever. And that's what I felt was missing. Pick a guy and make him your starting goalie for a little bit, for 20 games or 25 games. See how that works. Instead of just, 2 games, he didn't do well. Now let's give the next guy 3 games. Oh, no, he didn't do well. Okay, that wasn't working, and I think that was one of the key things to this.
Boston here tomorrow night, so I'd assume Lyon again, right? He played in Ottawa.
Yeah, I would think so. Honestly, they really don't have to put Luukkonen in until the middle of the month if they don't want to. I probably would somewhere in there, because you're playing every other day at times, or there's enough rest that you could keep going with Lyon. But if Lyon pulls a game where he has to face 40 shots or something, I might stick Luukkonen in there just to give him a rest and not wait until the next back-to-back, which, as I said, it's going to take a bit to get that one. So that's the way I would do it. But yeah, Lyon, and Lindy Ruff showed that Lyon is still the number one guy because he didn't come back with Luukkonen after a great game on Sunday against the Devils, and in my opinion, nor should he have. I mean, Lyon had taken the job, I feel, and I think Lindy Ruff feels, and he should have been back in that, and he was, and he won.
At St. Louis on Monday, then to Dallas Wednesday night, and Columbus an afternoon game the following weekend. What's the latest on Zucker and then Kulich, Paul?
Kulich still isn't on the ice, and we asked Kekalainen about it in Ottawa when we were chatting with him, and he doesn't ever have an answer, and I don't think it's like, I really know, but I'm not going to tell the media. It's a blood clot. You can't predict that. You can't predict when that's going to dissolve or anything like that, and there's a pretty good chance that Kulich feels fine. Yeah. But it's that thing inside of him that they have to get rid of because it's dangerous, a blood clot. And, I imagine it's dissolving it or whatever the doctors are doing with it. So that has to be frustrating for him. He probably feels like he could play, but there's something inside his body that's saying, no, you can't play right now. I mean, I've seen him leaning over the boards. He's on the bench quite often for practice, and he'll have a stick. And, he'll be passing back and forth to players and that kind of stuff in his gym shorts over there at the bench. But that's really, I doubt he's on treadmills or anything else. I mean, he's got to get healthy first. Zucker had a conversation with Lindy Ruff not too long ago, and Ruff said Zucker told him that he'll probably be ready to roll right after the holiday break. So I'll be interested to see if he'll be at the morning skate tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Of course, as you know, nobody could practice or even travel today. Normally, the Boston Bruins would have traveled to Buffalo today, but no team can do that. So it's like preseason where you go to the visiting team on the day of the game. I don't know if they'll leave in the morning and morning skate here, or if they'll morning skate in Boston and leave a little bit later. I've seen teams do it both ways. And that's why a lot of these games have teams playing that are closer together.
Yep.
I mean, you don't want Pittsburgh to have to go to Las Vegas, on the day of a game type of a situation. So, a Boston to Buffalo flight is not that big a deal. So that's what has to happen tomorrow.
Paul Kulich probably can't even work out then, right? Like,
I wouldn't think so. No, not with, I think it would probably be dangerous. Of course, I'm not a doctor, as you know, but I from what I'm hearing, it just seems like, he's got to take it easy until this is solved, whether it's dissolving it or I don't know how you solve blood clots. Thank God I've never had one, but it has to get solved first. Now, I'm not at all inferring this is going to happen with Kulich, and Lindy Ruff has said that he thinks Kulich will be back sometime this year, but I have seen that end careers where players just have to stop. And again, I have not heard that with Kulich at all. All I know is it's happened, but Lindy Ruff did say back when it happened that he is expecting Kulich is going to be able to play again at some point.
Looking forward to the World Juniors. Do you get up for that tournament?
Yeah, with Sabres in it, I do. Mertka was supposed to play, but he all of a sudden has come up with an injury, so we're going to have to wait and see if he's going to get into that tournament. But 3 guys on Team USA, and Ziemer from the University of Minnesota is their captain. And he has always impressed me when he's been here for a development camp in July. He's been here for a couple and has done a nice job in the 3-on-3 tournament. You notice him on the ice. And he's playing at the University of Minnesota. Kleber, one of the big right-handed shooting second-round pick defensemen who a lot of people have talked very well about, is playing for Team USA also. And Osborne also is playing. He's a lower pick for the Sabres, but really has come on this year in college. And I've heard a lot of talk about him. So he made the team also for Team USA. So that'll make Team USA a little more fun to watch.
I believe their first game is today. Against Germany. The tournament's in Minnesota this year. Mm-hmm. So, and we've won the last 2, I think.
I think that is correct. You're catching me here. You know my memory. You're the one that usually checks my memory for me.
Not anymore. I should have looked. That would have been the professional thing. And unfortunately, there's no way to find out who's won the last 2 World Junior Championships.
Yeah, neither one of us can hit Google, right?
Yeah, I don't have a media guide sitting here next to me that would give me that answer. They didn't send me anything this year. All right, Paul, thanks for your time, and we'll talk next week.